everybody? It's meteorologist Joe Martucci. It is time for the now award-winning Something in the Air podcast. And I'll just jump right into it. Couldn't do it without the guy next to me here, Dr. Dave Robinson, New Jersey State Climatologist. We won the third place award at the New Jersey Press Association's for Best Audio Podcast, although they did like the video and audio component. So my question to you, Dr. Robinson, I think it's probably because of your good looks, right?
No. Well,
Okay.
mean why you got third place and not first? Perhaps.
Oh, right. I brought it down. So you were like first and I was fifth, and then they combined it and then we got the third.
Sure.
I think that's how it worked. But I do want to say, sincerely, thank you, because you were the catalyst for this podcast. We did this originally with you once a month just on audio, and now we've expanded to twice a month, and we've done this with video, and they enjoy the engaging content that was in the comments. So I do appreciate your efforts.
Well, congratulations. I think it's great. You're the one that's pulled this together. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking. So that's just great.
Yeah, no, thanks. Yeah, and hopefully, next year we're gonna try for first. Maybe if I get out of the picture, and we'll just do you. We'll get you.
I think next you go for a Pulitzer Prize or something. I worked
maybe we gotta start breaking some more news on this podcast. Maybe
I worked with the Washington Post in 2019, 2020 on this. They had a series of articles on climate change, and the first one focused in large part in New Jersey and up at Lake Apacon, with no more limited ice fishing and things like that. And the byline for their very first in this series of articles was Lake Apacon. And last year, they won the Pulitzer Prize. So, I mean, I worked with them for months on the article. I had nothing to do with them getting the Pulitzer Prize. I just thought it was so neat to be part of that series of articles that won the Pulitzer, just like it's so neat to be part of the podcast that won this award. So
I think you sprinkle a little magic fairy dust on these things.
I don't know.
Awards. Now, when we had the podcast last month, we were right in the middle of that Energizer Bunny storm, as I call it, that 4-day long stretch of snow, and for us, mostly rain here. But the one thing we kind of left off on the podcast, it was kind of to be determined, was whether or not the 122-year-old record of 34 inches of snow in Cape May would fall from the storm. So there were, to my knowledge, there were two totals that were at least measured above that. Where are we now with that? Is Cape May still holding on to the gold medal here?
Yeah, still holding on. There've been a few changes on that. I'm actually going to be on a call in a couple of days, not only about that, but also the fact that a few communities measured over 50 inches of snow in the month of February in North Jersey. And that would be a record for a monthly snowfall, not just for a single event. So stay tuned on that. But one thing we learned along the way, and it's something just past us, it's in digital record files. There was a 34-inch snow event on December 26th, 27th, 1947, a very famous storm in New York City that deposited 34 inches of snow at Oak Ridge Reservoir up in the Highlands. I've looked at the original records. They look legitimate. I've seen the original diary with the 34-inch record from Cape May. It's really not our job to go back and prove or disprove them unless they look really errant. And I can tell you flat out, neither are fully errant, but they're not undergoing the scrutiny that we're given these recent observations where we've talked with observers. We've gone to sites where the obs were reported and found some questions, enough questions that we've not recognized in what we've published from this storm. Anything over, I think it was 32.8 inches up in Mine Hill near Randolph, Rockaways in the Highlands. So in our estimation in the State Climate Office, we don't think there was a 34 plus inch total. That was done correctly enough. And I think we may have talked about this. There's no perfect way to measure snow, but there are standards. So you have to stick to the standards. Otherwise, you're comparing apples and oranges with the way you're measuring snow.
Yeah.
And that's that. So that's the story. It's not that these people were inflating things intentionally and looking for the glory, if you will. But they didn't follow the published standards. And that's what we have to go by.
Right. Snow drama is a real thing, isn't it?
Oh, it's very dramatic, very dramatic. And you know, there's frankly, some of these people knew there was a record. And that you always ask that first. If they didn't know it was a record, then you've kind of hit them innocently enough.
Right,
but when you talk to someone who knows they broke a record, right away, it adds a certain extra level of scrutiny. But again, not one of these people am I sitting here accusing them of intentionally inflating their totals to break a record.
Right.
But when push comes to shove, where they measured, how often they measured and cleared an area and measured again and didn't allow the standards for settling, all of those things lead you to believe that there were 30-inch totals, but probably not 35 and 36-inch totals.
So let me keep it back on the snow topic. We'll go through the month here. You know, again, for us in this corner of the state, I mean, it was better than January, but not by much.
It was better than last year. And
yes, it still looks the same outside like last year, though. There's no snow anywhere. That's what I'm looking for. Let's just go through the
great out here. I'll tell you, it still looks great.
You got to ship some down here. I'm telling you, we have plenty of space for it. Plenty of space.
Now, we're running out. We're starting to run out of snow up here. Yeah, you maybe talk to somebody up in the Highlands where there's still a foot or more on the ground.
All right, I'll make the trip all the way up north. Let's just talk real quickly about February 7th. Typical storm for us here in New Jersey. I saw 0.7 in Pleasantville, but Buena Vista actually saw in western part of Atlantic County saw 4.4. And then there was a strip of like 6 to 9 inches right to the northwest of the Turnpike. Anything you want to add in that system for us in South Jersey?
Yeah, I'm looking over to my right because on my other screen, I have a map of that storm from our website. And my home in Somerset County was right in the heavy swath with that. We had 6 inches in 3 hours. Boom.
You're just twisting. You're just twisting.
Yeah, it went from north of Trenton up through Hunter and Somerset up to Bergen County. And north of there was less than 2 inches up in a lot of northern Sussex County. There was a bit down through the Pinelands. But yeah, I mean, Buena Vista, 5 inches, 4.4 out in the west, and the east, 0.7, 0.4. Yeah, it's the darn maritime, that darn warm water shut you out.
I want to turn the ocean off.
Shut you out. Now, the swath up in North Jersey from that storm was just, that we saw the same thing, but it pivoted some with the big storm. And then there was a storm later in the month where that swath went from Trenton right on the 195 corridor over to Monmouth County. And there they got their 6 to 8 and some scattered reports of 10 inches. Yeah. They were in that zone. So that's the nature of snow, but it was really apparent this month with a couple of these storms where just, miles made all the difference. Just literally a couple of miles in some cases, going from 2 to 6 or 8 inches of snow.
It's just, on my part, forecasting and telling people it's tough because you're talking about the same county where, if you lived in Buena Vista or Hamilton, your winter so far has gone differently than if you lived in Atlantic City.
Absolutely. And we're not talking elevation here so much,
no.
Maybe a little bit, but we're talking more just, proximity to the ocean is huge.
Yeah. We talked
you
about
tell
that last month.
your readers and listeners that all the time. But some of these events this month were just the location of the deformation zones, and you can explain it meteorologically better than I. And just these narrow bands of heaviest snow. And to the north of there and to the south of there, it's not a matter of necessarily going to rain. It's sometimes a matter of just getting less precipitation, period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I will talk about some brighter times, at least for me, snow lovers out there. February 11th, thumbs up. That was ours. That was ours. That
That
was
was
pretty
your,
good. It wasn't like the January 31st to 4th, but we had our snow. We had 4 inches in Pleasantville. That was the most snow I've seen. Oh man, I don't know. And a couple, definitely over a year and a half. Let's put it that way. And a nice stripe of 4 to 6 from Galway to Vineland. North had under 2. Um, what went right for us in that storm?
again, it was just being in that right zone where the conditions with the rising air, and you raise air somewhere, it's got to come down somewhere else. And that's why you get these strips sometimes. You get that in summer storms, clearly.
Yeah.
But you were in that zone where it was just situated. The temperatures were right and the moisture content was right. And yeah, I'm looking at that map's on our site as well. It's not as broad a strip because over in Salem County, they had between 3.5.
Yeah.
It wasn't until you got into north over to Vineland, and over in extreme southeastern Gloucester County, and then of course in through Atlantic, where you got into the 4 to 5 inch range. But it looks real nice here, and then up the coast a little bit, up in Ocean County. There were a few areas that got 4 to 5 inches, up to about Tom's River. So you guys were the rightful winners of that event. And as you said up north, you can gloat. Up by High Point, they had less than a half an inch from that event. But down in Cape May, it was a couple tenths of an inch. So poor Cape May. Poor Cape
the
May.
bubble. The bubble. We had our last podcast, Sergeant Snowflake. He goes by. He's I don't know if you heard of him. He went viral on Instagram for a Cape May bubble video he did a couple years ago. But yeah, he wasn't too happy about that one. But for me, I was happy at least. But this isn't a Joe Martucci Loves Snow podcast. This is a South Jersey podcast. So I'll deflect. I want to talk a little bit later in the month, and this one was a little, I don't know, I would say unusual in the fact that we kind of had 2 mixed events within a week, the 13th and the 19th. The 13th was an ice storm for us, and we had up to 0.2 of an inch of ice accumulation in the area. I know in the Parkway, exit 48, so like right as soon as you're going over the river into Burlington County, there was an accident. The Parkway was just backed up for miles, and that area of the Parkway does not really get backed up. And then the 19th, we had our sleet storm. And I say storm, little loosely. We had 0.4 inches of sleet, but 0.4 inches of sleet is still some heavy stuff going on there. So, and I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I think Estelle Manor on 1.4 from that, maybe a little bit of snow mixed in. But my question to you is, 2 mixed events in a week, I would imagine that's a little unusual, right?
Well, no, that's a fair bit unusual, and down near the coast, even more so. It's something you might find more inland, because again, the maritime environment will mix through the atmosphere and bring it all above freezing. And to get these events, you need to really look at that atmosphere as a layer cake.
Yeah.
And the lower levels of the atmosphere, you start with snow, and then that snow melts in a warmer layer and it becomes rain. And then as it gets near the surface, if that layer of air is deep enough or cold enough near the surface, it will refreeze the raindrops. Raindrops don't refreeze into snowflakes, and you get the sleet, the ice pellets. But if that layer isn't thick enough or cold enough, but right down near the surface, you're at or below the freezing point, that it won't have a chance to refreeze the raindrop until it hits the ground, hits the wire, hits the tree branch, and oh my goodness. And that's tough to get along the coast. So I think it's pretty impressive you had those 2 back-to-back events mid-month.
Adding to all this up, everything we had winter-wise or February-wise, where did we wind up snow-wise for the month in South Jersey and along the shore?
Yeah, not ranking all that high. As opposed to North Jersey, we divide the state into thirds when we look at snow. North Central, it was the snowiest February on record in North Jersey. The third snowiest in central Jersey. But I'm trying to remember what the ranking even was in South Jersey. It was in the
You don't care about
20,
us down here.
20 to
You like all your
30.
snow.
It's not news. Come on, it's not news.
Yeah.
Top 10.
Uh-huh.
But looking in Atlantic County at some of our volunteer observers, over in Folsom and out to the west, 18.7 inches of snow for the month of February. Pretty darn impressive.
Yeah.
That's essentially a season's worth of snow. Woodbine had 3.5 from the most we got, and an observer in Lower Township had 1.3. That's, January, February are neck and neck in the snowiest months of the year down, throughout the entire state for that matter. So that is below average. 4 or 5 inches would be something one might expect in the month. But you go up to Ocean County, Berkeley had 11.1 and Manchester 18.4. So the range there was about foot and a half,
Right.
For the month. So as you said, I mean, after the least snowy year on record in 126 years last year in South Jersey, this looked like an avalanche.
We'll take anything at this point.
But still, and it didn't get to hang around long enough to do a lot of sledding and on the saucers and the skis and all. So, but again, one has to remember those long stretches of snow cover in the South are the exception, not the rule.
We'll be right back. This is the Something in the Air podcast. Hey everyone, I'm meteorologist Joe Martucci at the Press of Atlantic City. Every time I do a talk, I say, if I could take this job again, I'd take it 10 times out of 10. I'm the only meteorologist at a newspaper in New Jersey. And down here in southeastern New Jersey, you all know weather matters more. Whether it's for farming, it's for the beach, or for your business. Weather plays a huge role here, and I'm making sure I'm doing things that cater to you. Whether it's talking about if your street's gonna have coastal flooding, or whether you need the air conditioner on at night at the shore. We're the only place that's doing a mainland and shore 7-day forecast. We're the only ones that are talking about whether your street is going to have coastal flooding. And that's why I want to keep this going. What's going on, everybody? It's meteorologist Joe Martucci here. We are back with the Something in the Air podcast, brought to you every first and third Wednesdays of the month. That's where you can find new episodes wherever you find your podcast. Join with me as we do at the top of the month, New Jersey State Climatologist Dr. Dave Robinson. We have talked plenty about snow in the first half. This half's going to be a little bit shorter than the first half, but I think we got rid of the let's say we got past the newsworthy stuff. Now let's talk about some other things that have happened. And this one's pretty newsworthy too. Let's talk about precipitation for the month. So that's taking into account melted snow and rain, which we saw plenty of here. Now at Atlantic City International Airport, it was really wet. It was actually the third wettest February since records started in 1943 at 6.06 inches. In the marina in Atlantic City, 7.41 inches. Now, their records go back to 1874, but you didn't need to go back that far to get to the first place one. That was in 2010. So we ended up in second place. 2010 had the highest. So what do you think about that?
It was real impressive. In fact, the Atlantic County area and surroundings was the wettest part of the state in February. The highlands with all the snow gave it a run for its money. But it was just this relentless, and you mentioned this earlier, this string of storms, this relentless string of storms. You go a couple days and then came the next one and then the next one. And while it didn't snow all that much down in the southeast corner of the state, time and again, the heaviest precipitation fell in the southeast corner of the state, as opposed to like last summer where we were seeing it in the southwest corner. It was actually that area of the state had the least amount of precipitation this in February, and it was still above normal there. They just weren't as much above normal. And we have to remember, February statewide is the driest month of the year. Now it cheats a little because you got a
I was going to say,
fewer days.
right.
But it is a drier time of the year.
Let's switch on over to temperatures. We'll wrap up here. It was pretty interesting because we were actually below average for most of the month. It kind of reminds me of like an Oreo this month. So the cream was the cold air, and this was like a mega stuffed Oreo because there was a lot of cream in the middle that was below average. But then as we went to the beginning of the month and the end of the month, they were above average, and we ended up pretty balanced. Atlantic City International Airport was minus 0.1 degree, so just below average here. And what was interesting, and I'll have you touch on this, we always like to look at those high and low temperature splits. Well, high temperatures were 2.2 degrees below average. High temperatures were 2.2 degrees below average. Low temperatures were 1.9 degrees above average. My guess is because literally half the days, had some kind of precipitation. That cloud cover limited the cooling at night. Did you find this in any other stations? And would you agree or disagree with what I said?
Oh, absolutely. This is what we saw statewide. I mean, it was a little colder up north because the snow keeps things a little bit more refrigerated. But it wasn't an exceptionally cold month. It was kind of a consistently cold month. But yeah, the pattern with the very frequent cloud cover and the number of days with precipitation definitely kept the nighttime temperatures up, and the daytime a little bit below average quite often. But
Talk about prescribed burns with forest fires. I know last February, I mean, there was a lot of burning during the month of February because it was pretty dry, and two, it was warm, so relatively warm. So you had that dry air, and when you're doing these prescribed burns to help clear out some of the brush, you want humidity to be a certain level, you want it to be dry, you want the sun out. I'm going to imagine that we're not doing as much in this past February, and probably not too much as we've kicked off the first couple of days of March so far. I know you're in some communication with them.
A little bit. We provide a private website for the foresters who are looking into doing prescribed burning or just looking for forest danger, where we look at wind speeds, humidities, fuel moisture, and things like that. And I know of some prescribed burns this past month. I think you highlighted a few of them looking at one of your reports online. But yeah, far less than last year because of all the wetness. Now let's look ahead. The next couple of weeks, it looks dry and it looks milder once we get through this week. I would imagine they're just waiting. Now you don't want to get too dry. You certainly don't want it being windy. No. So you got to be real careful because the prescribed burns are so important, and it's really wise forest management. But you don't want to get in a situation where you lose control of those prescribed burns. Mm-hmm. And that's why these guys are professionals, and they watch it very, very carefully. Not just what's going on right here and now. They look at what's happened in recent days that could influence what conditions are today. And of course, they need to look at the forecast to see what's coming come afternoon, right, or evening. So I think they're going to be ready to go with some prescribed burns in the next couple of weeks as conditions warm up and dry up.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to be fair to say that winter is over here in our corner of the state. I don't know how much snow we're getting after it's March 2nd now. I don't really see much. Yeah. It only takes one. I'm very well aware of that. But I think our chances are fairly low.
They are low, and some of that's driven by looking at the 8 to 14 day outlook from the Weather Service, which brings us to the middle of the month. Yeah. And it looks like next to no chance between now and then your odds really start falling off of getting significant measurable snows. And if they come, they get melted during the day. They fall during the day. They usually melt on contact because there's enough solar radiation making it through the clouds. If they fall at night, it can get icy and snowy for a bit. So let's not take snow and ice totally off the table until we get into early April. But they're more just conversation pieces as we get later in the month, and things, it's certain situations you have to still be careful. You can't let your guard down. But yeah, I think we're over that
Yeah.
big hump that
Yeah.
we just went through.
I looked this up a couple of days ago. I was saying I don't see any snow through March 10th. And then after March 10th, I think we average at the airport like 0.2 after that. And there's a lot of zeros in that as well. You know,
Yeah,
once you get
it's
past
tough.
that point.
Well, just remember last year, the last freeze at Atlantic City Marina, the last freeze of the winter was on March 1st. It did not get below freezing after March 1st. And I dare say it's below freezing today. So already.
Yep. We already broke it. We're already, if you like winter, we're doing better than last year.
Yeah. I mean, and it's not like it got real warm, because April and May came in below average. They were our 2 months last year that were below average, but it just never got cold enough at the marina to get down to 32 or lower after March 1st.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think I'm going to wrap it up there. I'm just going to we'll let it go.
Welcome to spring. Welcome for meteorologic and climatologic spring.
Yes. Oh, I call it climatological spring. I know that's the proper way. It's not meteorological spring. It's climatological spring.
Oh, I polluted your mind greatly.
You did. Yes. You live rent free, like right here in my brain. I know I always think I'm like, he's going to email me or he's going to say something. It's climatological spring. So yes, it's climatological spring. Perfectly fine with me. It's March, April, and May. And it's summer's coming. It's coming. And hopefully, you know, we talk about COVID and everything. Looks like vaccinations are happening. I'm on the list right now, but I haven't gotten it. And, you know, we'll see. By Memorial Day, hopefully, you know, we have a good amount of the population that's vaccinated. We can fill up the beaches, fill up the shores, do it safely, and have a good time.
Let's certainly hope so. It's hard to believe it's been essentially 12 months with a very, very different way of going about day-to-day life. And for the losses, we don't need to get into that here but everyone has suffered losses. Many people have made it through, but have lingering problems. If it wasn't you, it was a family member or a good friend. It's been one heck of a stressful year. And hopefully, you know, listening to this podcast where we just talk about the weather till our heart's content, as you know, once a month keeps people's mind onto something else. So maybe we're doing a good service here. I know we enjoy it. Of course. And I hope the listeners do. And again, congrats for your award.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. Like I said, can't do it without you, because you're here, you know, half of the times talking about weather. And we've actually gotten some good feedback recently. So I thank everybody who's commented or sent an email or said it on the phone. Appreciate that. And, yeah, we're going to keep doing the good work here. And by the time we get towards, well, beginning of April, maybe we'll start seeing some tree or some leaves starting to get on some of the trees, or at least bud in here. And we'll be on our way through spring. So we'll wrap it up there. Dr. Robinson, for the latest in New Jersey current conditions, people can go to
njweather.org. You're going to see maps coming out, but you know, patient, those of you who are seeing our maps changing. We had to go to a new mapping package that we've developed. We're going to be putting it up on the cloud, but there's been some growing pains of late. So I beg your indulgence for that, but please visit njweather.org. All the data are still coming in tabular, graphic, and map format. And then we already talked about njclimate.org earlier, where you can look at the snow data and other observations as well.
Perfect. Well, you enjoy your cross-country skiing. I'm going to enjoy the green grass out here.
A few more days up here, a few more days.
All right. Well, by next time we talk again, I don't think you'll have any snow left, but enjoy it while you have it. Have a great March here. We're going to chat with you at the beginning of April. Maybe Rutgers basketball, men's or women's, might be still playing by then. Going to be a stretch. I saw the look. I know. I was just
Hope
was just
springs
being
eternal
optimistic.
on the banks of the Raritan, right?
That's right. There you go. Great way to end it. We'll talk to everybody soon. We'll be back with you third Wednesday of March. Until then, this is the Something in the Air podcast.